Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special program on cyber squatting, one of the darker chapters in the early history of the World Wide Web. Today, we'll hear a dramatized conversation that provides an in-depth look at this shady practice that took advantage of the Internet's domain name system before proper regulations were in place. Our two characters, Alex and Sam, will take you through the ins and outs of how cyber squatters operated, the impacts they had, and the efforts that were eventually made to shut down this unethical activity. Before we dive in, let's set the scene. It's a casual afternoon, and friends Alex and Sam have met up at a coffee shop. After catching up on recent happenings, Alex brings up an interesting article he just read about the wild early days of the Internet. Let's listen in.
Hey Sam, you'll never believe this crazy story I just read about cyber squatting.
Cyber squatting. What is that? Some new video game?
Not at all. It's this shady practice that happened in the early days of the internet when website domain names were being given out on a completely first-come, first-served basis with no verification.
Oh man, I can already see where this is going. Let me guess. People started registering domain names for famous brands and trademarks they had nothing to do with?
Exactly. These people called cyber squatters registered huge company names and trademark domains with the sole intent of squatting on them until the real owners paid them an exorbitant sum to get their domains back.
What a racket. How did companies allow that to even happen in the first place?
Well, you have to remember, in those really early internet days, a lot of big companies didn't put much value in having an online presence yet. So cyber squatters were able to snap up prime domains like McDonald's.com, Panasonic.com, and so on before the companies wised up.
I can't even imagine McDonald's not realizing the value of that domain name. So how did they get it back?
Get this. The guy who originally bought McDonald's.com was actually a reporter writing a story for Wired magazine about the perceived value of domain names back in 1994. When McDonald's finally came asking for it years later, rather than hold them up for cash, he just asked for a $3,500 charitable donation to provide internet access for school kids.
No way, a cyber squatter with ethics? Who would have thought?
Totally. But unfortunately, most weren't so noble. That's why companies had to get aggressive with defensive domain registration tactics once they realized what was happening. As soon as they decided on an online presence, they started scooping up every possible variation. Company name, .com.org, .net, .info, you name it.
I can see how that could get expensive really fast, and a hassle to manage all those domains.
For sure, but it was still way cheaper than paying off cyber squatters or dealing with lengthy legal battles. Speaking of which, there were some other big efforts to crack down on this practice too.
Like what? I'm really curious how they reined this in.
Well, the organization ICANN that oversees the entire domain name system started implementing policies to validate trademark rights whenever new top-level domains like .biz or .xxx were introduced. It gave trademark owners an advance window to register before the public could. They also have a dispute resolution process if a squatter still managed to grab a domain they shouldn't have. It's designed to be a faster, cheaper way to pursue arbitration over a domain instead of costly lawsuits.
Like what? I'm really curious how they reined this in.
Definitely, and then in 1999, the U.S. government passed the Anti-Cyber Squatting Consumer Protection Act, which allowed trademark holders to take civil action against cyber squatters, even foreign ones outside U.S. jurisdiction. They could seek damages up to $100,000 per violation.
Okay, that's good. At least they made an effort to clean it up through official channels.
You're right, though I'm sure it still happens here and there. But at least companies have way more protection and recourse than those Wild West days of the early internet. That McDonald's situation really highlights how oblivious companies were to the value of domains before it was too late.
Whoa, okay. Those cyber squatters probably thought twice about messing with major brands after that. Between the defensive registrations, ICANN policies, and that federal law, it seemed like they finally got a handle on preventing systemic cyber squatting.
And there you have it, folks, a thorough rundown of the cyber squatting phenomenon and how it was ultimately reined in through defensive business practices, governing body policies, and federal legislation. It really does seem like such an obvious grifting scheme in hindsight. But as Alex and Sam discussed, most companies failed to grasp the value and importance of securing short, memorable domain names related to their brands when the internet first emerged. That early negligence created a window of opportunity for opportunistic cyber squatters to snatch up chokehold domains with the intent of ransoming them back to trademark holders for an exorbitant fee down the road. Just think of how devastating it could have been for a McDonald's or Panasonic to lose their straightforward.com domain to a squatter. While some cyber squatters simply played dumb about the value of trademark domains, like with the 1994 McDonald's.com situation, others very clearly planned to lie in wait and hold domains hostage for a big payday. It's a brazen form of digital squatting that takes advantage of an internet in its commercial infancy. Thankfully, through the combined efforts of defensive company registration tactics, domain policies put forth by oversight bodies like ICANN, and targeted anti-cyber squatting legislation, this grifting scheme was successfully cracked down on over time. It's a reminder that the democratic, open nature of the internet will always require diligent governance and protection against those looking to exploit any oversight or ambiguity for personal gain. While cyber squatting is far less rampant today, the core lessons about prioritizing domain ownership and trademark protections remain just as vital in our rapidly evolving digital age. Whether dealing with existing systems or potential new territory like blockchain domains, companies must stay proactive and aggressive about securing their piece of the online world. Well, that's all for this deep dive into cyber squatting. Certainly an interesting look back at a shadier side of internet history. Join us next time for an exploration of another formative issue from the web's early era. Until then, thanks for watching.